Hey guys, welcome. Today I want to talk about my top three things to do before looking for properties. So, you guys know it is a very competitive market out there, and we have to do everything we can to create an advantage for our clients. So, one of the things that's very important to do before you actually start looking for properties is to review your purchase contract. Now, this is assuming you've already gotten your pre-approval, your pre-qualification, you've already selected, interviewed, and selected your realtor. The number one thing you have to do is review your contract. Doing so will essentially erase any doubts, any delays created after you find the property, be a delay between making an offer and or seeing the property and making an offer. In a market like today, there's multiple offers almost on every property you find, and speed and efficiency is going to get you more often than not more properties signed. So whether you are an agent or a buyer, the number one thing you should be doing with all of your buyers is reviewing the purchase contract. So I want to make sure my buyer understands the contingencies. I want to make sure my buyer understands the deadlines. It's a 12-page document that I want my buyer to be very aware and understands the urgency behind this purchase contract. So if I show a property, or one of our agents shows a property, and the client is ready to make an offer, we don't have time to waste a day or two going back and forth explaining the contract. I want to get that out of the way up front, right? So me as the mortgage broker, another thing that I do is explain the application process before we actually get into application. So during the pre-approval stage, I'm explaining to our clients what to expect during the process, which deadlines we typically have to meet, and so forth. So as an agent, you should be doing the same thing with your clients. And as a buyer, ask your agent to explain the contract in detail. You should write down and make notes of all of the important deadlines and contingencies. For example, your financing contingency, your title contingency, your inspection contingency are typically the top three that come up. You need to know whether you get your money back if you cancel within these three contingency periods. What happens if you change your mind, and so forth. All of these things have to be addressed before you go out looking for properties. Again, speed and efficiency is what we're going for here. And getting into a property quicker, or getting an offer into a property quicker, will essentially result in more contracts signed, more closings, and so forth. So that's my number one pointer. Number two is, as a buyer, you need to get an inspector. In Property inspections are the number one priority. Once you get into a contract, they are the very first contingency that expires on a contract. A buyer typically gets 5 to 7 business calendar days to complete the property inspections. It's a very important contingency to keep in mind, and a deadline to keep in mind, and you cannot lose 2 or 3 days trying to interview an inspector, or trying to get an inspector to come out to the property quickly. Inspections are on very high demand now, and inspectors are not just sitting around with a bunch of availability waiting for buyers to call them on demand. So as soon as you get into contract, you would have already reviewed the contract. You know the contingencies, no time wasted. But now also you can get right into the inspection process because you've interviewed and hired an inspection company. So that's my number two pointer there. And number three, from the finance side, on my end, I always like to prepare the file for underwriting, as if, or get the file ready during pre-qualification, ready for underwriting. So if you are a buyer that has been pre-qualified and your lender has not looked through your tax returns, pay stubs, W-2s, credit, etc., make sure they do so. I would advise that you make sure that your lender, your broker, the bank gets your file ready for underwriting before you get into contract. That's one of the things that we do with our team, is that once we pre-qualify a client, we collect all of the additional documents that we anticipate that underwriting will need. This essentially will get us to closing quicker. It will help us address any surprises that may come up later, address them up front, and any hurdles, right, that we need to cross, we're already crossing them before the client gets into a contract. So the top three things for you to do before you actually go looking for properties is: number one, you want to review the purchase contract. Make sure you understand the contingencies, the deadlines, etc. You want to make sure you interview and hire a property inspector. Get them ready to get out to your property as soon as you get an effective contract signed. And lastly, make sure that your lender or your bank has your file ready for underwriting. Again, the last thing we need is for you to go into a contract to purchase, and now you're scrambling to find your tax returns, pay stubs, and so forth. So I hope that helps, guys. Please keep in mind, efficiency and speed will get you more contracts. Anything that you can address up front before actually finding a property will help. That's all I have for today, guys. If you found this helpful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Otherwise, be safe, and until next time, see ya.